welcome back once again. Y'all want to hear a funny story? So I just got out the shower, and before I got in the shower, I was walking into my living room unclothed, and then it dawned on me that I'm unclothed when I saw the maintenance man outside my window. I'm like, oh shit. Because I'm like the type of person, I don't know, it's not just me, I know other people do it as well. Like, you walk around your place nude. This is just something that I do. And so sometimes I don't realize, like, oh, I'm naked, I should have clothes on, unless I see someone outside and he was like looking towards me, and I was like, I don't know if you saw me though, because I dropped down to the ground, but I was like, oh my gosh. It's crazy. The same thing used to happen when I was with my ex, and he would be like, go back out there, like go back in the bedroom, go back in the bathroom, put some clothes on. I'm just like, what? I don't know, it's not a big thing to me, but I get it though. I get it. Makes me wonder, where did I get that from? Could there be a childhood link growing up in a household where we had, in the household that I grew up in, and I grew up in different households, right? But one of the households I grew up in, there was one toilet, and we had, how many children were in the household? 5 children. 3 adults, 1 bathroom. And so, to remedy the issue, when someone had to use the restroom and the bathroom was taken, there was a pot in the living room. Now, let me know if you guys can relate to this. There was a pot in the living room that anyone could use if the bathroom was taken. You sit on the pot and you handle your business in front of everyone because it's in the living room. Almost as if, like, there's no sense of privacy. And when you grow up like that, and I wasn't like I was 3 years old, right? Because I don't have memories that I can recall before the age of 5. So it's not like I was 3 years old. It was more like I was up in age. We're up in age doing this, right? So, makes me wonder, is there a childhood link? Like, I find myself even just analyzing myself, right? And it's fun. Once you accept who you are, you come to terms with, yourself. Who you are. It doesn't matter what people say, what people think. I'm going to read, in this video, I'm going to read the final response to the guy, the white male attorney that I have been in conversation with. He sent me a reply. I'm going to read that, but before I get into that, I thought this is interesting because you guys noticed that I just did a video on this black cuckold who discovered my channel. He came across my channel and expressed interest in my perspective on cuckolding. It's fascinated by my perspective. So I got into an interaction with him, and I made a video about it, just sharing my perspective as it relates to his particular experience with cuckolding. Here's his reaction. Now, the funny thing, he didn't give his reaction directly. I'm like, oh, you're not that courageous of a soul, are you? Let me stop. But he didn't give it directly, so I'm going to show you guys how he gave his reaction. Now, 5 days ago, I made a post, not a video, but a regular post on YouTube. And I took a screenshot of a comment that was left on one of my videos entitled Black Female Dom and Male Submission. And I shared it with you guys, my subscribers. And I asked you guys, should I address this comment in my next video? I haven't addressed the comment up until now, but my attention was drawn to this particular comment because the black male cuckold that I made a video about yesterday, following our intimate conversation, he replied and he answered. Other people answered too. So I'm just going to read you guys the comment that this person left on my video, Black Female Dom and Male Submission. And I was asking you guys, should I address this comment? All right, here's a comment. Hi, have you considered adopting him only as a devoted servant? I believe in that video, Black Female Dom and Male Submission, I think I made it pretty clear that I'm not into that. Because a lot of people are asking me, oh, you know, would you be a Dom? You know, would you take on a submissive male sub? And I'm just like, no, I don't want to. It's not my thing, right? But I can share my perspective on it because you guys have asked for my perspective on it. And so here is a person who is just desiring for me. He's like, come on, you'll love it. And I get it. Listen, I get it. When it comes to kink or anything that you absolutely love, you have a fascination with, it's like you want to share with other people. You're like, I enjoy it so much. Other people must try this thing that I enjoy, right? I've been in that same place. I'm like, you gotta try it. You gotta love it, right? But no, you know, we all have our own, you know, fantasies, our own fetishes, things that tickle our fancy. And this isn't really one of them. I've mentioned that over and over again. But you guys are trying to persuade me. But I'll continue reading. He says, she says, have you considered adopting him only as a devoted servant? I'm assuming this person is a male, but whatever. I mean, make sure he understands that his position and he can't expect anything else than being there to make your life easier when you please. Explain to him that you don't see him as a man. Then you may have your partner as a real man you want. I don't get it. How would he benefit me though? How is that a benefit to me? You can't like persuade me to believe that I'm going to gain benefit from something I don't want to take on. I don't want to take on a submissive. That is just draining and tiring. And I already talked about a previous relationship that I was in where I was like more dominant than him. It was draining. And of course, I know every submissive man is different, but no, that dynamic to me is just draining, period. He says, you may even treat your devoted servant as a female or a gay friend so you can share with him your intimacies with real men. No. No. I don't need to do that. I get on here and I may share some things with you guys, but I'm very conservative about my life. And if I'm sharing my deepest, darkest secrets, it's with someone that I know I can confide in. But anyway, I'm sure he'll accept it and you'll be amused at how much he's aroused by the situation. He may eventually serve both you and your boyfriend. Why do you think that I'm into that? I'm not. I wouldn't want to date or marry a man, dominant man, who is being pleasured by another man. That's not my thing. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to share my perspective. And so, I did get some replies from other people who were giving me a resounding yes. You should reply. You should address that comment. Yes. But guess who leaves a comment 3 hours ago? The black male cuckold who I made a video about. I'm not going to stay too long on this, right? I'm not going to touch too much on this because I already realized just by me giving my own critique and analysis of his situation as a cuckold, desiring of love. He's sensitive. I mean, most people are sensitive, but he's very sensitive. Very sensitive, right? And oftentimes when people get in their sensitivities and their emotions and you touch them a certain way with words, you touch upon their life or situation with words, you can tell areas in people's lives that they still struggle with, that is a major problem for them in their life, just based on how they respond to touch. And I'm not talking about physical touch. I'm talking about touching with words. They're like, ow, ow, ow. I didn't think that he would respond this way. He is a black male, though. Not to generalize, not to stereotype, but there are differences, racial differences, when it comes to receptivity, right? And this is no surprise to me. It's no surprise to me. So his comment reads, no, you shouldn't. I'm like, wow. Is this the same person? I had to go back, right? I had to go back and read his email that he sent me just yesterday. Like, in a matter of a day. What changed? What changed? What changed in a matter of a day? This is the same person who was like, oh, queen, goddess, peace to you, queen. That's why, you see why I said I'm not flattered by that. Because I oftentimes, like, like, where it's coming from. It's kind of like a way to overcompensate. You can tell oftentimes with black men who have an issue with black women because they go to that extreme. Oh, queen. They're like overcompensating. Queen. Nothing wrong with queen. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. But to read between the lines, it's just like, Because I read you guys his emails, the back and forth. And I know I come from a good place. No, everything that I say, you won't agree with. I get it. You don't have to agree with it. That's why it's my perspective. But you coming to my channel. I don't know you guys. You're coming to my channel, sending me emails, seeking my perspective on your own life. I have my own life to live. Right? We all got our own lives. But you enter my space. And I share my perspective on your situation through a certain lens. I'm kind of curious to see why not respond to that email directly. Why go? He goes on a totally different post. And he says, no, I shouldn't respond to that comment. I'm going to continue reading what he says because he left some words here. He said, when you simply have an idle interest in topics, it's probably best to video a conversation with people experiencing the genre. So you notice, like, he's changed. He's changed. He says, being judgmental in the kink world is a big no-no. I'm like, is this the same person who emailed me first saying, my cuckold conversations and discussions are intriguing. They're intriguing, he says. What happened to the intrigue? What happened? Oh, gosh. Somehow, they're not intriguing anymore. I touched a nerve. Being judgmental in the kink world is a big no-no. You're preaching to the choir. I'm not in the fucking kink world. I'm not involved in the particular kink that you are in, but I am a part of the kink world. Anybody know? Me knows. I fucking love BDSM. I love my role as a submissive. I hate being misunderstood. But I know myself. And the thing is, going and pursuing a PhD, which I've already achieved, but that process, being surrounded by psychologists who analyze human behavior, this is what they do. It's like, what the fuck do you expect? You know what I'm saying? I knew that my shit would be up for scrutiny. I wrote my autobiographical fictional story, Dying to Submit, 2014. This is before I began my PhD. I began my PhD in 2016. That story, autobiographical, fictional story, was written in 2014. I had a premonition. I knew that I would receive scrutiny from people within academia. I know. Because this is what they do, right? But I didn't care. I just don't care. And, my first year in my program, I was called for meetings surrounding, my website. You have things on your website that obviously are offensive to people who are not part of that particular kink. But I'm like, this is my life, right? And so my advisor at the time brought this to my attention in the meeting, and now she is LGBT, so it's like, okay, who is she, the judge? And she wasn't judging, she was just putting it out there, the idea of, okay, how does this mesh well with your professional identity? You're developing professional identity as a psychologist, right? Because here on your website is this bondage and all this stuff, right? How does this go with becoming a psychologist? And I'm like, I think it goes well with it. Of course, I'm the biggest advocate for my own kink, right? So she was trying to get me to think, because they were flooded with like messages from other people, even my own fucking colleagues, classmates. They turned on me. I went behind my back and went to the higher ups. Oh, Danielle, this website, blah blah blah. These are white people on me, turning on me, but I don't care. Listen, at this age, and even at that age when I was starting the program, like, come on. I've lived life. So oftentimes, like, I can see things happening before it happens. I know. I know I live a very bold life. I'm a bold person. So I know people are going to have reactions. People have already had reactions, right? And then she said, so I know in my response in the meeting, I was like, I'll just take it down. She's like, oh no, I'm not suggesting you take it down. I'm like, well, why the fuck are we having this meeting then? Like, that's how my mind works. It's just like, okay, if you're not suggesting me to take it down, then why am I here, right? But whatever. But I get it. It's just like, to raise my consciousness on, what I share. It's just, no, I'm who I am. I'm very comfortable in who I am. And so that is my message to people who identify themselves as kinksters. Rest in who you are. That's how you gain respect. And if you have an issue with just being yourself in the face of scrutiny, so to speak, or in the face of a person's difference of perspective, then you got to check something within you. And this is separate from being a part of a kink community. This is just being a human being. And it kind of saddened me to see that at his age, like, he's still struggling with that, which in my analysis that I did yesterday on my video entitled Intimate conversation with a black male cuckold, I pointed that out, that could possibly be a contributing factor to the issues that he's having. That's separate from you being a cuck. So to assume that I'm casting judgment on your fetish, I don't give a fuck if you're a cuck. I don't give a fuck if you motherfucking... I don't care, because I'm also a part of that same community that is considered bizarre behavior. Like, I identify with that. I'm like, live your truth. But I do come from a certain angle, obviously being a psychologist, to understand the motivations for why people do certain things, right? And trying to delve deeper in a person's motivations does not mean that they are being judgmental. That's all for your own benefit. He says in the same comment, people are allowed to express themselves without someone who doesn't relate to their particular fetish chiming in and muddying the waters. Muddying the waters. Yo, the waters are already muddied. They're already muddied. You don't know you're playing in muddy waters? People chiming in and muddying the waters. People are just putting a mirror on your ass. People, that's how you know where his issue lies. Because when the mirror is turned around on him, I'm just reflecting back to him he don't even know what's in him. That's why it's important to know thyself, right? You got to be careful engaging in discourse with people who, number one, like myself, I read people, right? I don't judge, I read you. And I may read certain aspects of you that you aren't quite accepting of for yourself. You haven't even quite accepted this part of who you are, because you're still wrestling with that. And maybe you're not happy with certain aspects of who you are. And I reflect that shit back to you, showing you, I'm just holding up a mirror in front of you. And you find it offensive? You take offense to that? You think I'm being judgmental? No, just talk about how it made you feel. Then we can have a conversation. Talk about, in your response to my video, in a personal email, you went public. I didn't go public. You made this public comment. I'm surprised you didn't just reply to the email, to our conversation. As did other people who requested I elaborate and share my perspective on their own personal issues. Our conversations were via email, but they allowed me to share it in a video publicly, where they remain anonymous. So what's your issue here? Muddying the waters? You're already in muddy. Yo, your eyes don't even realize you're in muddy waters. That's why you're drawn to it. Can you accept that you're playing in a dark world? Don't try to glamorize the shit. Don't try to fucking put some perfume on it and dress it up. It is what the fuck it is, and accept it for what it is. Why is that hard? It's easy for me. I don't understand how it's hard for a person who I would assume you've been in the lifestyle for some time, but he hasn't really, I don't know, I think he's just now discovering this shit. He gotta be. He ain't been around. He been around this earth for some time, but he ain't been in this fetish for a while. He ain't been in it too long. Too triggered. But that's another thing I noticed also, going back to Fet Life, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I do have other things, the main topic of this video, that I want to get into. But another thing about Fet Life, people are hypersensitive. And it goes to show, like, yo, they're showing the link, right? As a person that you claim, that you see me as an outsider or whatever, looking into your situation, which I'm not an outsider, but that's how sometimes people feel, I guess, in a way, in interacting with people who may not share the exact same fetish. It's like, yo, a lot of people in FetLife are very just hypersensitive. And the way that they respond, they interact, there are issues there. Same thing with the LGBT community. It's just like, you gotta know yourself. I mean, it's like, it's one thing to try to pretend to be flamboyant and I'm secure in my sexuality, and you know that you wear this facade like you're confident, but then you're not so confident when a person begins to have a back and forth conversation with you. How are you so confident? Why are you so easily triggered? And it's something there that has nothing to do with the interaction at hand, but more to do with other stuff. It's other stuff muddying there in your own waters. And people can sense that, right? And that's where the focus lies. The focus lies. When you're interacting with someone who is curious to get to know who you are. Why the need for such a reaction? And like I said, this comment was in response to a totally different, not even the video I made about him. It was in response to another comment that I posted on my YouTube channel relating to me discussing this comment, right? He's like, oh no, like it's like a change of heart. Before he's like, oh, I like to hear your perspective, your discussions. That's the reason I'm drawn to your channel. And then in a matter not even of 24 hours, it's like, oh no, as a matter of fact, I don't think you should discuss, you should not discuss these topics anymore. Talk about emotional instability, yo. What the fuck? What changed? Because nothing changed. My approach to responding to his email is no different than my approach to responding to the other emails. So I'm like, what makes the difference? Okay, perhaps one can say race. Perhaps one can say he's just not really knowing of himself. He's not in tune with himself. He's not. People who are in tune with themselves know themselves. They don't get this easily bothered. Because there's no reason to be. And they don't, like when you get like triggered, right? Because you're in your emotions. When you're highly emotionally activated, what shuts down? Your frontal cortex, right? Your frontal lobes just kind of shuts down. Get deactivated. You're not able to think clearly, logically. When that happens, and you misperceive things in your environment. I don't want you to misperceive my approach and my response. Or even for that matter, maybe other comments that were left. Because perhaps it wasn't what I said in the video. Maybe it's perhaps comments that were left on the video. Where, and I noticed this, there's a guy that is commenting in like all caps on a lot of my cuckold videos. And he's basically reiterating what I've already said in the video, but through his lens, right? Adding like his own sauce to it and shit, trying to sauce the shit up. And I caught on to that. I'm just like, okay, I had to reply to one of his comments where it seemed as though he was being judgmental and saying that, and this is his comment in response to my video on the white male cuckold in the UK. And he's like, oh, you didn't hold him responsible, you let him off the hook. And I'm just like, yo, this man is not in court. He's not on trial for his fetishes. That's his preference. That's not what this is about. Please do not misinterpret what I'm doing here in these videos. I do challenge people to think. But I'm definitely not here to judge. I make that clear. I'm not here to... How can I judge you? I'm not here to judge you. I'm with you. I'm with all of y'all. Do what you do. If you like fucking pissing on people, do what you do. That's your fetish. That doesn't impact me. That's what you like to do. If you like being fucked in the ass by other men, that's what you like to do. It doesn't have a bearing on me. Coming to you as I would if you were my friend and we're talking about this. So after reading his comment that he just left, I have to go back. That makes you want to go back. Like, okay, is this the same person? And reading his email, his previous email that came before the video that I made about him. Hey, peace to you, Queen. I've seen a few of your discussions on several topics, but the most intriguing by far is the cuckolding discussions. It's so rare to see a black woman who is even aware of what a cuckold relationship is, much less seems to have somewhat of an appreciation for it. So my perspective hasn't changed. I still do have a respect for whatever your fetish is. Doesn't mean that I'm going to participate in it. But I can respect anyone. Because that's just my nature. I'm not a bad person. I do have a genuine love and care for people. He says, I'm a black man, by the way, proudly, so as well as conscious in a real way. It makes me question. I'm going back, like, are you really proud to be black? He does say that he engages in race play. Listen, nothing wrong with race play. I haven't talked about my fantasy with race play as it relates to the historical roots of slavery. I ain't gonna say no more. But I've talked about that before, right? But it does kind of make me wonder, because I did see some of his pictures, and yeah, they were with women who are not black. And it just makes me wonder what was his relationship like with his mom. It's a question that I'm throwing out there, because that often determines a person's relationship to other women, black women, right? Considering his mom is black. So hypersensitive. And if you have issues with miscommunication with me, I can only imagine how it's showing up in other aspects of your life. And you're complaining about having difficulty finding a partner. He says, as you know, we're all walking contradictions. To me, it's a special and amazing vibe to adore and cherish your queen, goddess, wife, girlfriend, partner. That's why y'all see I was looking like that, right? Because it's just like, does he really feel this way? Being supportive of her exploration and playing for pleasure, and da-da-da-da. He goes on to say, anyway, queen. He just keeps this. Y'all see how many times he says queen? It's bullshit. But anyway, queen, I'm sending love and respect. I'm appreciative of the discussion on the topic. As time goes on, it becomes more and more clear to me that my existing in a cuckold mindset will ultimately find its place in the real world. Blah, blah, blah. Follow-up email, he says, like, damn, it's like a perfect storm has to take place to bring all the ingredients together. He's speaking to the difficulty of being able to find the right partner. He says, finding the right situation with the right person can be elusive, difficult. What makes it difficult, though? You might be the one making shit difficult. And then, this is my thing, right? Because a lot of y'all have this idea that, oh, you would make a great dom. I'm pretty sure I probably would. But I don't think it would. Nah, y'all ain't ready for that shit. It makes, like, it's ironic, right? That these same men claim to be submissive, right? But at the same time, yo, you can't even take a little pinch of critique and analysis of your behavior. But you got this fantasy of wanting to be dominated, and then don't try to bring me in that equation. Get the fuck out of here. Get the hell on. Go crawl away with your tail between your legs. Now, moving on along to the topic of this video. The real reason why I came here, right? So you guys know, like I said, I've been in conversation with a white male in his late 30s who identifies himself as a cuck, but he's become more in tune with himself to realize that his true desire is to, be penetrated by a well-endowed black man. Live your truth and speak your truth. And he's been very appreciative, right? It's one thing to say, okay, I appreciate your videos. It's another thing to truly appreciate. Because I can tell in our exchange, and you guys probably also noticed that he does genuinely he appreciates, my perspective on it. Even though I may have a different perspective than he has. Which, of course, I'm going to have a different perspective. But these people come to me wanting me to share my perspective. So obviously I have something to bring to the table. And this is his follow-up email in response to my part 3. He says, "Hey Danielle, thank you for part 3. Today your video was powerful for me, and again, you are so accurate with many of your interpretations and explanations despite relatively limited information from me. I cannot express how helpful this is." One thing, you guys, I don't know if you really pay attention, but if you guys notice, like if I am doing an analysis or making an interpretation, I typically ask. And through my asking, you feel convicted. If you, depending on your degree of conviction, that shows how accurate I am based on your own conviction and honesty with what you feel on the inside in response to my interpretation. Know thyself. I have in recent years examined my upbringing with some insight from a friend whose dad was a psychiatrist, right? So he's already had exposure with a psychiatrist. Similar to a psychologist. The difference is that psychiatrists, they have prescription privileges. They can prescribe medication. Most psychologists aren't allowed to do that. We don't have that privilege, at least not yet, in many states across America. I think there are only 5 states where psychologists have prescription privileges. But they are lobbying to make that as part of our role as a psychologist. I'm not really big on prescription medication. That's a whole nother. I did make a video on like the whole pharmaceutical energy and psychotropics, the dangers of it. That's a separate topic. But basically he's saying that, he already has encountered a psychiatrist, right? And in this encounter, like, you gain an insightful awareness of who you are. A heightened awareness of who you are as a person. He says, and through him became aware of the root causes of some of my issues that I have, including a short temper. And I pointed out that, he's emotionally unstable. That goes with that, right? As a consequence, I opened up and have thus been much honest with myself about my issues. So you guys see why I had to juxtapose the black cuckold's response, which is really indirect. He didn't message me indirectly. He left a comment on a separate post that is not related to his. I mean, I get it, right? Versus, this cuck's response, right? Who has a bit more self-awareness. It's clear when a person is self-aware. It's clear. I've already said this. When you know who you are, a person can hold the mirror up to you and not only just know, but accept who you are, right? It's not going to frighten you. You become frightened when you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't see those parts of me. You're showing me this, right? Then they misdirect their anguish towards you for holding up the mirror. Just like, I'm just holding up a mirror. I'm just parroting back to you what you've already said and what you've already shown, made very clear. But it's good to be around people who are like self-aware though. It's a different vibe. Like you want to be around people who are self-aware. Not being around people who are self-aware, like that's where interpersonal problems happen, right? And he's wondering what's the source of his interpersonal problems. Yo, take it from someone who cares, trying to help you out, bruh. I like that though. That's why people underestimate, the importance of psychotherapy. Want to see a psychiatrist, a psychologist, but I can respect people who have a respect for their profession itself. They don't take it as a threat. They value it. And there obviously is racial differences between the utilization of psychotherapy when you compare white versus black. And I understand. I get it. Black people approach things differently. And there's an issue of trust of the healthcare system. But that doesn't make the issues go away that you have, though, right? Just to say, all right, I don't trust the healthcare system, so I'm not going to go and utilize this service. And then you continue to just live in that dysfunctionality and continue to not really know yourself. You may have other avenues for knowing yourself. Okay, if it works, it works. Whatever makes you feel good. Whatever helps you sleep better at night. But are you doing well in your interpersonal relationships? Apparently no, so there's an issue there. He says, I have essentially self-diagnosed myself as being emotionally unstable, which you were able to establish with ease. I have recently been looking for a local counselor. I came across your channel when searching YouTube for discussions of cuckolding from a psychological point of view. Because I'm always curious, like, okay, how did you find me? And one thing I didn't necessarily ask the black cuckold was, what was the video? What video inspired you to message me, right? Because it kind of sets the context for the conversation. I had that question in my mind, but I think I just approached his email from a different angle. He did say that my cuckold videos, but be helpful to know which one in particular. Apparently, videos is plural, so you watch more than one of my cuckold videos. My approach is the same. My perspective on cuckolding is the same. It hasn't changed. Like I said, I find it fascinating, clearly, but it's not something that I would want to do. I don't have a desire to engage in a cuckold relationship. But yeah, I like to add the psychological perspective, my own spin on it. He says, I very much love deep conversations about people and their behaviors, trying to understand why people behave in certain ways. You have an appreciation for psychology, understanding human behavior. My girlfriend doesn't engage in this type of discussion, which isn't wrong of her. See, this is a thing. Like, psychology is a discipline, right? And there are many different theories within psychology, many different lenses that you can look at human behavior through. There are other disciplines, right, to study behavior. People have taken to astrology. Like, people take to all different kinds of stuff, right? If it works for them, it works for them. If it makes sense, it makes sense. But I have to say, even if you take to astrology, astrology doesn't explain everything, though. And this is the issue I have with astrology enthusiasts. It's like that doesn't explain all behavior by looking at the time and place that you were born and the alignment of the planets and stars, and it's just like that doesn't explain all behavior. There are a lot of behaviors that will not and cannot and will ever not be able to be explained by astrology. He says, we are ultimately very different people. Opposites attract, right? Yeah. And people with common characteristics also are attracted, right? So if you have like a degree of emotional detachment to your family, to your nuclear family, you tend to also be attracted to other people who have that same degree of emotional detachment, because then it makes both of you emotionally available to each other by having that detachment from your nuclear family. That's where the whole idea of codependent comes from, which I don't necessarily look at as a bad thing, though psychology does. So the thing about psychology is that it can often be used as a tool to kind of like demonize behavior, right? Or to explain it from a bad perspective, make it seem like, oh, this is wrong, this is bad. I don't, like I already said, for me it's not a matter of right or wrong, bad or good. It's just about understanding. It's not a bad thing. I don't look at it as a bad thing, but then we assign our own labels to words, classifying it as bad or good. That's your own process, though. That's not my approach or my intention. He says, whilst I have no professional training in psychology, it has become a fundamental part of my job, particularly when I am trying to persuade a court to express compassion. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, that psychology is like the foundation of many different disciplines. Whether it is criminology, if it's medicine, if it's marketing and advertising, psychology is the base. Because psychology, we're looking at behavior, human behavior. So any discipline that deals with humans, you can go back to psychology to be able to be informed on whatever it is you're trying to understand. It's very helpful. That desire to try and understand others and their behavior has become a real interest, and is something which I could discuss all day. Yes, understanding others and understanding yourself. He says, it feeds my soul and makes me feel alive. Yes, 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 yes. He says, my symptoms are that I have an almost constant fear of abandonment in the back of my mind and a sense of loneliness. At least he is willing to admit. See, that's where we can build conversation, because he keeping it real. And I can keep it real. And talk about my own psychological issues, which I have. I'm transparent. It's like, what is there to hide? So what? So what? But people like that black cuckold, like, he's wrestling with that. I don't want him to wrestle with that. Like, it's so freeing to, like, help people be able to just accept things for who they are. Sometimes they got to remove themselves from the scenario to really come to an understanding. Remove yourself from the equation and talk about a hypothetical situation. The hypothetical really is your situation, but remove yourself from it, right? And it makes it easier for you to handle it, to maneuver it. Because when it's your situation, you're touching yourself and you're sensitive. Right? But yeah, it does feed your soul and make you feel so alive. And then you can alchemize that. Like when you know human behavior, you know yourself, you can, that's powerful. It's very powerful. It's like you can like will anything into your existence and use that to really get anything you want. It's the reason why you have taken this path to become a lawyer, like, because it's like who you are, the strengths that you have as an individual serve your job, serve very well your position as an attorney. You can make anything happen in your world when you understand human behavior. It's difficult for you to do that though when you don't quite know yourself. My symptoms are that I have an almost constant fear of abandonment, alright, in the back of my mind, and a sense of loneliness. That's what I picked up on when you were talking about effectively ending the relationship and then immediately providing reconciliation towards her. People who have a fear of abandonment oftentimes create these enactments with their partner to test their partner's commitment to them, because it's reassurance for them that when they have that insecurity and that feeling of abandonment, feeling, fear of like, oh, this person's gonna leave me, they don't want to be with me, I'm not good enough, all these insecurities, right? To assuage those insecurities and the fear of abandonment, right? To ease that fear, you create, and oftentimes it's done on a subconscious level. It can be conscious too, though. But you kind of create these enactments, and it's a test for the other person, but it's more so for yourself, right? And then you get their reaction, and then you see, no, they do love you. So where is the fear coming from? Aha. It's not coming from that relationship, because you see that she loved you, because she was like, baby, no, she's crying, So that was an irrational fear manifesting itself in the present moment between you and her. But where did that fear come from, though? Where is that voice coming from? That's why it's good to know thyself and understand the connection between your childhood and your present, because that fear is not that it's completely irrational. It's not that it doesn't have a basis for somewhere. It does, but not in the present moment, though. It's not coming from that relationship that you have in the present. It's manifesting itself in the present moment, but it's coming from somewhere else in your developmental history, and that's what needs to be addressed. And that's why I like to do these kind of critical analysis of various topics, especially related to kink, because it's helpful, it's insightful. If you're able to handle such and you have that degree of self, he's already been primed by a psychiatrist. So people, you can tell the difference, and I can tell the difference when I'm working with clients in treatment. If between a client who has seen a therapist, who's been in therapy before, and a client who hasn't, it's just diametrically different. Yeah, it's just as clear as night and day. Like, okay, yeah, you've been to therapy before. Why? Because what is the outcome of therapy? Like, you gain a heightened sense of who you are. It sounds so simple, right? But it's not that simple, yo. It's not simple knowing who you are and accepting that, why you do the things that you do. It's not that simple. That's the whole purpose of therapy. Versus like people who haven't, they're lost. And oftentimes you ask them, well, why? You ask them the why question, right? Or the how. Their answer is, I don't know. I don't know. And then the conversation is very shallow with those kind of people. I've seen it play out, yo. Kendra, she is a radio personality here in America, and she's utilizing her IG platform, which is pretty massive, to play matchmaker. And it's entertaining, right? And it's informative too, to see different types of people come on there. She allowed different kind of people from all over to come on there. And she asked some basic questions, right? You know, your age, where are you from, when was your last relationship, what are you looking for in a partner? And you will be amazed to see how people really don't know themselves. They don't even know what they want. They're just very shallow in their responses. She's asking them, what do you desire from a partner? And these people don't know. That's problematic. You want something, but you don't know what you want and what motivates that. Versus people who are very in tune with themselves. You can tell the difference. You know, they're very elaborate in their communication with her. And they know what they want. They know why they want it and everything. And they can talk openly about themselves and their drawbacks, their weaknesses, you know, areas for improvement, so to speak. And it's just amazing. But it makes a difference. So in talking about his fear of abandonment, he says, but I am often aware of the irrational nature of those thoughts. See? Took the words out of my mouth, right? Irrational nature. But it can linger like a mini depression. Yeah. Yeah, it's saddening. It's confusing. It kind of creates a degree of uncertainty. It's like those thoughts are there, like, why am I dealing with this? It almost kind of make you feel like, am I going crazy? Like, I know these thoughts exist in my mind, but then when I speak upon these thoughts to gain clarity with my partner, I'm not getting the response that is in alignment with the thoughts. It's just like, wait a minute, right? You drive yourself fucking crazy. He says, I don't medicate with drugs, prescribed or recreational or alcohol. I often exercise. Exercise is your medication. That's your anti-drug, essentially, right? Or distract myself in work. I do drink alcohol socially. He says, my mom and dad are in their late 60s and I am in contact with them both. They are both still together. You're in contact with them, but doesn't mean that you've had that conversation with them. That conversation, you know what conversation I'm talking about, can be very difficult to have. Because sometimes people just like, you know what, let the past be. Just if it ain't broke, so to speak, let's just not stir up anything. Right? If we're having a good day, we have like a good working relationship now in the present day. Why even resurrect? Why go back and resurrect, you know, what happened back then? All right. My dad was a violent bully when drunk and a hard-working guy when not. Why resurrect is because it's still impacting you to this day, though. It has an impact on you to this day. Family therapy would be the place for it, but it has to be with a great therapist. Right? You can't just be showing up in anybody's office and exposing your wounds. Can't do that. You got to make sure you get your hands in a good person. You get your life in a good person's hands, shall I say. Who's going to take care of you and your family. Make sure you're good. You know, don't send you out in their office open wounds. Got to close those wounds back up and help to build up your ego so you can go out and live your life, right? Because your therapy, that's something, something else. If you ain't careful. So you're saying that he was a violent bully when drunk and a hard-working guy when not. Yeah. I can see he is a good guy. Yeah. I'm not trying to say your dad is a bad guy. I'm not saying that. We're talking about behavior, human behavior, not judging. But I've had a resentment towards him. Yeah. Of course. Of course. And that resentment is still unresolved. And so that would be the why you should, that would be the answer to why you should, have that conversation with them. You say you're in contact, but having contact and having conversation, right? Two different things. My mom is very loving and my dad very supportive. She never fought back but was a big drinker herself. I think you are so right. I have a void. We all have voids. That's why I think like group therapy will be effective for like certain groups of people, especially like, you know, African Americans, because we have endured a long history of maltreatment, of abuse, just of trauma, you know, from each other too, especially, and, you know, from the oppressor, right? Over generations. And so sometimes one-on-one, one-to-one is too much for black people sometimes, right? To really delve into themselves, to gain an awareness of themselves. It's better sometimes to be able to come together as a collective in the context of a group setting, group therapy. Because a group offers that support and doesn't make you feel isolated, like, oh, you're talking about me, right? Because when that mirror is turned around on you and you're one-on-one with the person who turns that mirror, like, the therapist then becomes like the source. The therapist then becomes like this recipient of your anguish, you know. And the most important part of therapy is the relationship. So oftentimes in therapy what happens is there is a rupture in a relationship because the client becomes triggered by something that is said by the therapist, right? Whether it is like, you know, a technique or analysis that is made, and that impedes their ability to go forward. And who loses out, right? The client. But in the group context, not to say ruptures don't happen in group context, because people still get triggered, but the group serves as a purpose to kind of buffer against those like kind of visceral reactions that you're going to have and dealing with your shit as it comes to surface. Because the group creates this like supportive environment. They're like family in a way. Recreated. I can do a whole separate video on like group therapy, what it looks like, the different stages of group therapy, how you can learn about a person through their interactions with other group members. Because how people tend to relate to other people, let's say in a group therapy context, is how they relate to people in their own life, right? So it's very telling. But let's continue. He says, I think you're so right. I have a void, and maybe this desire to be topped is rooted in that void caused by my experience at home as a child. Yeah. At least he's willing to consider it. You know, not for my sake, it's for his own, you know. I've had some soul searching for myself. I asked myself, like, damn, why the hell I like to be tied up and beaten by my male partner? What is that about? I get turned on by that shit. Literally, what is that about? And I know, I just go back down memory lane and just being honest with myself to say, well, I admit I suffer physical abuse. Now, my family don't like me to say it that way, right? What black person does? A lot of black people don't look at like beatings as abuse, like childhood beatings they receive as abuse. They're like, oh, it's just discipline. No, that shit was abuse. It was abuse, and of course it caused me to develop resentment towards my mom, which is being worked out. Because she shifted. She's showing like more compassion towards me, which I mentioned in a previous video. How my mom has evolved. But yeah, I never can forget those beatings and being made to strip down to my underwear and lay across the bed and be beaten with extension cord, cable cord, leather belt, on and on, to the extent where I have whelps all over my body, and those whelps last for days, and I'm being made and forced to wear a turtleneck shirt to cover up the bruises so that school administrators don't see the damage my mom has caused, and her ass don't go to jail, but she used to threaten me. My sister's just like, oh, you called the white man on me. The white man being, authorities. You report this to the authorities, they're going to beat you worse than I did. So, of course, we never call HRS, right? We just suffered in silence. But I'm honest enough to admit that I know it has to have something to do with that. Being the way I like being beaten, because that's just the way my mind has processed that experience. Ongoing, I got beat up until the age of 16. And then that's when I ran away from my mom. I ran away. I'm like, fuck, I can't do this shit no more. I'm too old. I reached puberty. You know what I'm saying? I got breasts, got a period. I'm still being made to strip down to my underwear and lay across the bed and be beaten with an extension cord? With a cable cord? That's used for your TV? Like, that's too much. It's just too much. But yeah, I desire that, because that's how my brain has made the association with like discipline and what love is, right? My mom being my primary caretaker. This video is not really about me, but I like to sometimes kind of slide in bits and pieces of my own personal experience so that you guys know that I'm with you. How can I judge you if I'm with you? I'm with you. And it's very freeing, like he said. It feeds my soul. It makes me feel alive to be able to discuss and understand our behavior, what drives us. Doesn't change your desire. You know how many times, like, I've been to therapy, like I said, part of my training as a psychologist, it's part of their requirement. They make us go see a licensed psychologist, right? We got to talk about our own shit and see what it's like being on the other side of the couch or whatever, right? And so, yeah, I've been psychologized. Big deal. It's not that scary of an experience, though. It's not that bad, like you would like to make it out to be, or some people would like to make it out to be. But no matter how much I've been psychologized, I always made it clear to my therapist and my psychologist, I'm not giving that up, because that's me. And I accept that. That's me. I told my professors this. I talk about my BDSM, fetishes in my classes, so they know. Not that they needed to know, but if I feel like if it's relevant, listen, I'm expressing myself, right? I'm not going to sit up in silence and be this quiet kid in the classroom because I feel like, they're not going to accept me or they're going to talk bad about me, and so I'm just not going to share my perspective on a certain topic. No, I'm going to share my perspective no matter how different it is. And that's just has always been me. And so, yeah, my fetish hasn't changed. It's not going to change. Like, no, I like what I like. I like what I like. And I encourage you guys, like, live your truth. You like what you like. I'm not here to change that. Let's be clear. This is clarity here. You mentioned my inner child, and that is now something that I will look into and research. Oh yeah, we all have that inner child. The inner child, oftentimes, it drives us. It's like it's part of our subconscious mind. And the mind, again, I know we point to the mind like here, right? But the mind is like really throughout our entire body. The mind is like in our DNA. It's encoded in our DNA. It's a program. Yeah. And oftentimes we are drawn to people who can help us co-create a certain type of relationship dynamic that nurtures that inner child. Out of all of this, I am much more self-aware and recognize a need to be more compassionate. A counselor is my next necessary step for me. It's not a bad thing. But would I expect a black man to say that? What this white man is saying? Hell fuck no. Counselor is my next necessary step. No, right? We're just different. Different cultures. But yeah, therapy is a luxury. He says, if I lived in New York, I would be seeking your services and trying to persuade you to take me on as a client. Yeah, I did say that he's not my client and I couldn't be his therapist. Why? Number one, he's in the UK. I'm in the US, so any client I see has to live in the state of New York where I will be licensed. Aside from that, though, yeah, I wouldn't recommend, like, let's say he was in New York, right? And then once I am licensed, right, and in my own private practice, would I take him on? No, because I feel like it wouldn't make for a good relationship, given that, first of all, he found me through YouTube. I think that's a conflict of interest. And then the fact that it's already like made kind of public, it's just kind of awkward, right? And if it feels kind of weird, like it's like, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't be doing this, right? He says, I am conscious that your channel can't always be about me, sadly. Aww. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it can still be an ongoing conversation. Like, I'm willing to readdress, like, come back, right? We can take a step away from it, and then I can come back and, like, address, do a follow-up to see, how are things going. Hell, I feel like we all invested now in your story, so why not, do a follow-up. He says, and I know this may be the end of our interactions. It doesn't have to be. Sincerely, thank you. I thank you for your honest and good energy. I hope your platform grows because you inspire confidence and empowerment and truth. Oh, look how it's interesting just to see people's different perspective, right? But I think those differences of perspective and reaction to my video analyses that I do is just based on their own level of self-awareness and acceptance of who they are. He says, people need real and genuine enlightened scholars like you to help clear the fog in a world of chaos. Yeah, and there are other people like me. I won't try to say like, oh, I'm just this. I mean, I'm unique, right? We're all unique, but there are a good number. I wouldn't say a lot, though. I can't say like the majority of psychologists are great. I can't say that. And even other psychologists will attest to this because we know our profession. Just like there are a lot of doctors out there, right? But medical doctors, that is. But doesn't mean, just because they went through training and, are licensed, that makes them great. Because, a lot are just terrible. Patients find themselves in the hands of, like, very bad doctors who fuck up, malpractice, right? Same thing with psychologists. There are a lot of bad. I feel like, I hate to say this about my own profession, I feel like there are more bad psychologists than there are good. Bad, not in terms of like ill intent. I'm not saying bad in that way, like they intentionally are bad. I'm saying bad in the just sense that they're just, they probably just cause more harm or don't really help, right? They're not moving people towards health and wellness. Yeah. you know, they may help, like, you know, keep a person where they are so that their condition isn't getting any worse, right? Keep them at a certain stability of a level, but it's not going to get beyond that. They're not like enhancing their well-being. They're just like keeping it kind of plateau so that it doesn't regress into something that's worse or deteriorate into something that's worse. I don't know if I would consider that a good therapist who does that. But yeah, he says thanks and leaves his name, and then he does a PS. I definitely believe in cosmic power and something more than coincidence. You're right, there can be no coincidence that me and my girlfriend came together with so much uniquely in common about our upbringings, and likewise, while I came across your channel and randomly decided to open up to you. I don't think it's a coincidence either. Energy, right? I know, right? Yes, yeah. I don't consider this as the end. Only reason why I said, okay, I think it'll be my last video because, yeah, we have to at some point, like, bring, like, it to a halt, you know, but it doesn't mean it can't be readdressed. And in fact, this is not a coincidence, yo. In fact, you guys won't believe this. I'm like, this cannot be a coincidence because guess what happened at 10:10 this morning? I got an email from a person that I did a video response to. I can read his email, you guys, but I got this email at 10:10 this morning before I went live here. So it just goes to show, like, I gotta be doing something right. I know everyone is not gonna agree with my video response to their email that they send me, but don't y'all think there's something to it though? Like, because this is another white man. Now, I remember him. I'm looking at the date, right? Because he sent me an email today, but looking at the email thread, he sent me an email way back in May. We are in September, and he emailed me way back in May, on May 12th. Right? And I think I did a part 2 or 3 series to his email. That's why I'm like, yo, send me the link. Because I didn't seem like I made so many videos on cuckolding. I don't want to get you mixed up. But yeah, I think it was an interracial race play, and he mentioned that he's a white man. His wife is black, and he sends me a follow-up wanting me to continue, you know, doing this analysis. I'm just like, oh, I appreciate this, right? So I'm going to read the email that he sent me this morning, but I'm not going to address it here. I'll come back and address it. So he says, hello. So my wife and I were talking the other day about continuing our activities. You mentioned in one of your last videos, you thought it would be a good idea that our child knows who their biological father is. Why would that be a good thing for our child to know? If I already accepted her as my own child, what's the use of to tell my child who their biological father is or who we believe he is? So if I can recall correctly, because like I said, this person sent me an email back in May. Right? We're talking about 4 months ago. A lot has transpired in 4 months, especially for me anyway. So I think I remember because I think he was saying he was like a cook, and his wife, you know, did some extracurricular stuff outside of their marriage, and I think conceived, got pregnant. And you know, the funny thing, I be getting these stories from y'all, and I'm like, yo, this shit gotta be fake, right? It's like some Jerry Springer shit. But for him to follow up, I'm like, well, perhaps it's real. Perhaps she did get pregnant, right? Not by him, though, but by someone else that she was playing with. And so here he comes back. Guess it's on his mind. It's, you know, the thought. Because maybe, did I suggest that you know who his biological father is? Maybe I did. But then he's like, maybe still thinking about it. Like, what, I'm wondering what makes, I'm not going to respond. He's going to read. Okay, let me continue reading. So he says, why would that be a good thing for our child to know? If I already accepted her as my own child, what's the use of to tell my child who their biological father is or who we believe he is? We don't think it would be a good idea based on the circumstances of how she was conceived. Also, our families don't know. We thought her family knew, but now we think they do not. What and why would it be a good thing to know who her biological father is? Kind of sounds like you're considering acting upon that as a threat to the relationship that you have within your family, right? That you created. With that being said, my wife and I were talking about having a third child. She kind of wants to have another child by a different man. Right now, I am on the fence about the idea. I think the idea is interesting and exciting. However, back to what you said before, should a child know who their biological father is? Is there a benefit? It's going to be interesting. I'm going to address that, but not here, because guess what, yo? I've been talking too motherfucking much. 121. So on that note, I will end here, but we'll come back and address his email. Something like this. I must be doing something right. But on that note, I'll catch you guys later. I have not even eaten yet. I'm about to eat. Probably some leftovers. I went out yesterday. For people wanting to know where I went, what restaurant I was at when I went live yesterday, it's called Harlem BBQ. They have some really good food. And big ass frozen margarita. I'm like, that was so much alcohol in that. I ain't even gonna front. Because I did walk back home, and that's a nice walk from Harlem to Upper East Side. But I just like walking. It's good exercise for me. And I was tipsy, walking back. I was tipsy. I slept good last night, though. But I'm just like, oh, yeah, that was too much. On that note, I'm going to catch you guys later. I love you guys. Have a great day. Today is Tuesday. Why does it feel like this still the weekend? See you guys.